Well, I feel kind of bad that I keep doing these Friday Lives later in the evening than I should. And that sort of robs you of your, you know, ongoing witness of the turnover of the seasons. If I clocked in at 3 p.m. Every day, you would have seen a very nice shift from quite dark, nighttime hours shifting now into quite light daylight hours at that same time of the clock over the course of these last few weeks, and it's fairly rapid and it's nice to watch. Well, you haven't seen it. I'll talk a little bit more about this change of seasons thing, and then I want to talk a little about that change of seasons thing as a topic. Great, you're on the internet when it's about talking about yourself. Well, anyway, the first point is that, as I have bored you with many times, um, the two solstices are famous, of course, in when it comes to going toward the poles of the planet, in that the winter nights are very, very, very long, and the winter days are very, very short, and vice versa in the summer, um, and that's great. And I've talked also about how much I like the equinoxes, which fall equidistant between the solstices, because those are the times when day and night are the same length. And I find to be really dramatic ecological shifts in the lifestyle and the the activity of nature around you, much more so than the solstice, which from the day before the solstice to during it and then the day after, it's not like nature's doing anything different during that period. Whereas the equinoxes, it's kind of like the whole world around you just goes, ooh, big change, and everything shifts its behavior. So I like that. But if this further subdivision doesn't drive you nuts, since that's four seasons each, and then cutting each of those, or rather, it's two halves, solstice to solstice. Okay, and then we cut those in half at the equinoxes, and so that's fourths, and then we cut those in half, so equidistance between a solstice and an equinox, and vice versa. A little while later, um, that's at about the 4.5 week period, I would say, um, about that, for maybe a little longer, um, along the course of the year. And that is kind of interesting because there's a rate shift at that point. Coming off the solstice, from that point, it seems like the shifting is fairly slow for a little while, and then it goes fast. So here, the day length didn't steadily change, or it steadily changed, or seemed to be steady for a little while after December 21st. And then, right around the time I'm talking about, which has no name, it's just equidistant between the solstice and the upcoming equinox. And this was about a week and a half ago. The shift was very rapid, so that we're looking at sunset around, 2 p.m., and then all of a sudden it sunsets around 3:30, and you're like, wow, that was just a couple of days, right? So that little speed up there, and then the converse, when you are past the equinox and are approaching the solstice, is also very noticeable. So anyway, further subdivisions of light and life here. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, so what? Okay, well, first of all, let's switch it around for my friends in the States, or similarly, similarly placed places in terms of latitude, and their experience, especially if they live in a place with distinctive weather, and having lived in um, a number of places, everywhere has its weather that people who come there don't really expect. And even if it's a mild climate, they encounter something that to everybody there is normal that, they suddenly realize that their habits are not really equipped for. Just to give you the examples from the places where I lived the most, where I grew up on the Monterey Peninsula in California, everybody, this is familiar to anybody from the Central Coast section of California, everybody who comes there thinks it's going to be San Diego, which is considerably further south. And I mean, like, really fucking considerably further south, and is this kind of, the stereotypical idyllic Southern California, sun-washed situation, or at least that's what everybody thinks. And it's frankly kind of close. But up north-ish, it's still, not quite to the midway north-south point of the state itself, but it is Central Coast section and very emphatically considers itself Northern California because we have fresh water and the fuckers take it. That's how you know North versus South California. But anyway, there, the weather has two primary seasons, and the winter is extremely rainy and hits freezing during the night, although frost occurs. Snow, historically, I'm not saying it never happened, but it certainly was not part of life. And if it did, they know it's gone in 40 seconds after sunup. But it drops really sharply all year long. The day to night temperature drop is considerable. And in the winter, gets really freaking cold by the standards of the people who are living there. Okay. Chicagoans are like, that's not cold. Well, it is if your lifestyle is not based on encountering heavy snow. It's not. There, that shift, which Chicagoans do not encounter, the day to night temperature isn't very different in Chicago per season. Whereas there, that shift is a real shock to anybody who arrives there. Also, the shock being that the standard weather throughout, I didn't mention the other season, which is drier, but the standard weather for both of them is quite gray. And although the sunny days are beautiful, it's quite a shock to people who come and visit sunny California to be sort of standing in this iron gray, rather, foreboding ocean landscape instead of, frisking about in the jolly sunshine the way they thought. So anyway, that's one example. And the bundling up or the necessary handling of cold weather snaps is a part of life there. And if you're not prepared for it, you move there and your first year is going to have a whole lot of miserable moments when your pipes burst or your, you suddenly find yourself out there in your shirt sleeves thinking that you were going off into the sunny morning. And all of a sudden you're like, what is going on here? It was sunny yesterday. Yeah, it was sunny yesterday, but it's nighttime now. It's colder, a lot colder. Okay, so that's one example. Fine. Then if you're like me, then you move to Chicago and when you're 18. And although I had encountered plenty of snow on journeys in Northern California, sometimes like living in it in fairly primitive conditions for weeks. And so I was not unfamiliar with snow as a substance or as something that you have to deal with. I had not been a regular driver in snow. I had not been accustomed to it in and out of the house kind of stuff. It was always away, from ordinary life for me. So again, though I'd encountered it, it was still a fairly alien thing to actually have it, on my doorstep. So anyway, Chicago, as I'm sure you know, is quite an eye-opener. If you haven't done that and then encountered the snow from basically, I didn't come from the tropics. It's not like I had no idea, but still the lifestyle concept was way new for me. Well, here's my point. Say you were a local in Chicago and this Californian shows up And you will, I assure you, put up with his yip yap about, gee, Willikers, golly, there ain't nothing like this kind of snow back there in California where I come from. This is geez, y'all just live here in this freaking snow all the time. Look at this stuff. It's here. It was here yesterday. Oh, there's more of it. There's more of it today. Hey, ding, 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 ding. Did you see? There's more snow. Okay. So you'll put up with that for maybe a day. And after that, the social pushback to shut up is very strong. And the idea is this is normal. Look, you live here now, right? This is normal. We're not freaking out about it, and we don't have to be reminded about it, and we will complain about it in our way, incessantly, in our good time, for our purposes, socially speaking, and your, God shucks, response to all of this is of no interest to us. Okay, so that's the response, and you'll get the same response when you go and stay in central coastal California, and you're like, freezing your ass off, and even more fun when you go running into the ocean for your first dip, and everybody kind of folds their hands and watches as you hit the water, and hope if you make it up to your mid thighs before realizing that was not the ocean you expected, then you got pretty far. So, all right. Locals are not sympathetic. Okay. To them, this is normal, and they get, a moment. They'll give you a moment of observation, readjustment, but they're not very interested in your ongoing exoticism of their place. Think about that, okay? Every time I get on here and say, oh, the turn of the seasons, it's so different here, and look at this place, it's, oh my goodness. You know what? This is really not very different from somebody, going to some place where a lot of the people where they come from are primed to think of it as very exotic, classic Orientalism, for example. And they get on the YouTube every week and go, can you believe what they did? And can you believe we ate here? Can you believe this? And it's not just culture. It'll be like, can you believe, that the cherry blossoms are all over the place, or whatever. And the point is that they're reporting on it and gaining cred from their listeners by exoticizing it and making it into this, freaky show pony for them to ride, basically on the backs of the people who live here and for whom this is normal. It's just another spot on the earth. And all of its features are easily understandable in terms of shock physics and ecology. Not too exotic and not intrinsically exotic in any way. So I got to thinking about what I was doing here and telling you guys about the seasons turning, and up here in Sweden, oh my goodness, it's like, it's dark and such, and all that. Well, and here's the next thing, because it is my way to go too far and then to go a little farther and look back upon going too far and saying, maybe it was good to go this far, to go too far and farther, turn around and realize that you can look upon the too farness from a new perspective. And so I'm doing that here. I think when I say that ultimately the goal could be, in retrospect, to say, hey, it is good to recognize that we are all on the same planet and that we are living on different spots, and those different spots have different properties. And for people perhaps out there in, staring into their screen when they really ought to be doing something else decent, just so you know, hearing people talk about what is it like there. And I think I kind of like that idea. I've grown to develop a true dislike for generic TV land, with, I'm afraid, little sensitivity to my Canadian friends. I was sneering at Canadians playing Americans, because you see, they don't use their Canadian voices. They actually use this kind of strange American voice that Canadians make when they are playing Americans on American TV, of which there are many. And it has this weird semi-neutral cultural feel to it, that I think we're all familiar with from television. Despite panning over the city during the credits, we're in LA, we're in Baltimore, we're in, Seattle or something like that. But once you get down into the soundstage and the actors doing their thing in the various rooms and stuff like that, it basically becomes that weird land. Okay, that land of nowhere. Culturally somewhere, but not a real place. And so I guess the only thing I have to strike back at that, first of all, it has to do in my chosen art form. The way that I strike back at that is extremely distinctive, but also just in terms of hanging out here on YouTube. So instead of saying, gee, shucks, golly, these Swedes sure live funny, boy, it sure is strange up here in Sweden, and I'm basically sort of doing that, and everybody going, wow, that is strange out there. Boy, you are in a strange place over there. That's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking instead for just realizing where you stand on the globe, where you are, and saying, how did the physics, get me here? How am I, as a physical object on this physical object, experiencing things due simply to that location and simply to the more contingent history of, well, you're talking to a biologist, and if I start blithering about continents and, Gulf Streams and, many, many, many other things, and strata and so forth, we'll be here for a long time. So I won't do that. But let's just say the contingent ecological history of where you are and those properties which are evident and active about it all around you. And so you could get on YouTube, and instead of going, maybe you move somewhere else, and then you get on there and you're saying, well, over here they do it this way, or the light does this, or the trees do that. And that would be great if it brought us together and de-exoticized those things. And that doesn't mean make them boring. The anecdote of you thigh deep in the Pacific off of the coast of Pacific Grove, amuses me no end merely to think of it. I will never quite lose my localness from that place, and fail to watch you before we can stop you, go tripping off into the water to go gamble with the killer whales. Well, anyway, I just want to say that I hope you like that point, and I wouldn't mind, even if you're a local where you are, and what you say, you would say, oh, that ain't nothing, this is normal, get over it, and then realize that actually reverse what I said a minute ago. Yeah, you are exotic, even if you think it's a boring place to live in comparison to, the dramatic winters of Chicago or the over-romanticized coast of California and stuff like that. Who knows? Say so.